This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Let's face it, quarterback is a hard position to play, and sometimes we want that position to be as simple to figure out as every other position on the field, right? If your running back's not playing well, we'll find somebody who can run the ball. And sometimes it can be that simple for running back, but for quarterback, it's a lot more complicated. It's a much more difficult position to fill because there simply aren't that many people who could throw a football accurately, one, and then that many people who could throw a football accurately while reading a defense, while withstanding a rush from the front line, while also having to adjust your eyesight every half second because something's always happening in the pocket. It's a very difficult position to play, which makes it hard for me to have expectations this week for D.T.R. Now, statistically, I won't have expectations for him. I just haven't seen enough of him, right? The preseason is a good indicator. It is some positive indicators of what he can do. And I think what he did against Baltimore, I don't know how much that really indicates, right? He played on a short week. He wasn't expecting to play. And he played with a game plan that wasn't necessarily tailored to him. Now this week's going to be different. He's going to be playing in something that's a little bit more tailored to him. But I don't think that these changes can be made immediately. And I do think that just like Deshaun Watson coming back was a process and we had to wait that process out, we got to have a similar mindset around D.T.R. in that process this week. So I expect this to be a bit of a process with D.T.R. And I know it sucks because it felt like we just got out the process with Deshaun, but this is where we're at. And that doesn't mean that you should lose games the same way that the process didn't mean that you would lose games with Deshaun. But that does mean that the numbers from quarterback just aren't going to be super gaudy for the first week or so because there are some adjustments that need to be made. What are those adjustments and what do I think you can expect to see with D.T.R. out there instead of Deshaun Watson? Well, I'll tell you. One adjustment I think you're going to see is they're going to play a lot more 12. They're going to play a lot more, I don't know if a lot is the best term for it, but they'll put 13 out there more than they did with Deshaun out there. I think you'll see them run a lot of play action, run a lot of stuff with empty, similar to what they did with Jacoby Brissett last year. I think this offense is going to resemble that. If I am being objective here, in looking at the strengths and weaknesses of D.T.R.'s game, the things that I am pretty definitive about with D.T.R. Like, these are the things I have enough information to know that he's good at and that he's not good at. One of the things I know that he's not good at is throwing deep balls. And teams are going to beg him to throw the ball deep, especially if they don't catch on now, which is possible. I don't think teams are digging into his UCLA stuff and everything else to try to figure out who he is or isn't going to be. But his deep ball has never been good. At UCLA, it wasn't good. None of the years he was ever close to the 45 or 50% on these deep balls that you want to be in college. In the NFL, he's not, well, I don't know what he is in the NFL, but I've seen him throw the ball deep. It's just very inconsistent. Either he can get it the distance, but not the accuracy, or he could get the accuracy, but not the distance. He's just not a great deep ball thrower naturally. That doesn't mean he can't have a good game throwing the ball deep, but that's just not a huge part of his game, which is fine. A lot of quarterbacks don't have the deep ball as a big part of their game, and they're able to get by without it. And for a Browns team that has been thriving on yards after catch, it might not be what you need. Again, this is a West Coast style offense. That's where the origin of it is. And if you remember back in the day how we used to describe West Coast offenses and the receivers you need, those are always going to be yak guys, over the middle guys. Now going over the middle is a lot easier. So it makes running these West Coast offenses a little easier, and it makes it easy for you to get away with a lack of arm strength. I feel like the biggest mistake that people make with D.T.R. when they evaluate him is they use his athleticism and they say, since he's athletic, we must compare him to other athletic quarterbacks, right? We must compare him to Deshaun Watson. We must compare him in his play style to who's another dynamic athlete at quarterback, Lamar Jackson, right? Like Pat Mahomes. And I'm not saying people think he is Pat Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, or Deshaun Watson. Not saying that at all, but I'm saying people compare play styles. So it's a very important distinction that people have compared play styles to that. Like whenever I hear viewers or like people in general, even people who cover the Browns, people who don't cover the Browns, people who are familiar with D.T.R, I hear these terms get brought up and they bring up guys like Pat, like Lamar, because they get so enamored with the athletic ability that they're not really paying attention to what his strengths and weaknesses are as a passer. And that is true. He is a good athlete. He can scoot. He's quick. He's athletic. He's willing to run. I would be worried about letting him do it right now because he doesn't have a great aptitude for not taking hits, but he is a good athlete, right? So you can do that stuff with him. And I expect the Browns to do a good amount of that stuff with him. But if we're talking about DTR as a passer, who he's like is a lot more similar to Brock Purdy. I've said this for a while. He's more similar to Brock Purdy than Deshaun Watson when it comes to play style. He's more similar to a pocket style quarterback. He can be athletic, but his strengths as a passer are not throwing the football on the run, are not throwing deep balls and getting these nines out of nowhere. Like where DTR's strength is as a passer is staying in that pocket and being on time. He is not going to be Mr. Out of structure. He is at his best when he can be on time and get the ball out of his hands and do that, right? I think that's why on top of everything, the Baltimore game, he looks so bad because when you take a player who requires structure in order to be successful, right, and they don't have a great grasp of the structure, and the structure is not the structure that they're used to because you have an offense in for somebody who likes to play out of structure, that's going to lead to disaster. DTR didn't expect to play. He even said as much, like he wasn't as prepared as he felt like he should have been. That's a disaster for a player who needs to play in structure. And I also think that the offense wasn't for somebody who needs the structure, who can get the ball out quick, right? That was the fatal flaw in that Baltimore game. He wasn't prepared. He wasn't ready. And it was not even a good fit for him. But what we saw in the preseason and why DTR looks so much different in the preseason than he did in that one regular season game is because he was playing within the structure of the offense. He was able to get the ball out quickly. He was able to hit timing routes. The reason, because he was well prepared to play those games. That's what DTR is. He's closer to Jacoby Brissett than Deshaun Watson. Both in potential and in play style. But that's who DTR is. That's his play style. That's how he is. That's where he's at his best playing the game. There's a reason why they're bringing in names like Joe Flacco now to potentially be the third quarterback or the backup quarterback for DTR instead of PJ Walker. Because what PJ Walker and Deshaun Watson had in common was play style. They both thrive in chaos to varying levels, but they both thrive in chaos. PJ comes from that June Jones offense. He comes from that spread Temple offense back in the day with what was his name? He used to coach for the Carolina Matt Rule, like that kind of out of structure, let him go, drop back, see what you got, and be a gangster type offense. And that's what PJ's good at. That's what Deshaun's always been great at. And when Deshaun's out, but it has a chance to come back, it makes sense that you would keep PJ in as the backup because that's the structure of offense that you have. And DTR is not equipped to run that offense. But now that Deshaun's out for the rest of the year, the structure of offense that gives you the best chance to win is that West Coast stringent structure that you've ran before and ran to great excess before here in Cleveland with Kevin Stefanski. And I think that that's what you're going to be reverting to. Now, does that mean that I automatically think DTR is going to turn into Brock Purdy or even Jacoby Brissett? I'm not sure. I do think that you're going to get a better look at him in the next few weeks than what you had against Baltimore. I do think that people will start to understand the strengths and the limitations of DTR. DTR is somebody who you want to keep the throws under 30. If you keep the throws under 30 yards, you just ask him to get little chunk by little chunk, you stay ahead of the sticks, I think he can be serviceable. I think he can play well, and I think he won't turn the ball over. But if this offense plays sloppy, if this offense gets behind the sticks, if this offense cannot get production on first down with runs, then you're going to put DTR in a bad position. And DTR is not going to look that good because he's not the guy that you want in there on long yardage situations. He's not the guy that's going to throw the Hail Mary to win the game. He's not Mr. Deep Ball. He's not Mr. Big Shot. He's not going to do these things on a consistent basis. Playing DTR is going to be similar to playing Jacoby Brissett. It's going to be similar to playing Case Keenum. It's going to be similar to playing these guys when it comes to how the offense is going to look and what the structure of the offense is going to be like. The good news is that the Browns have had success in this offense, right? When the run game's going well, you can run this kind of offense. You can stay ahead of the sticks. You could gobble up time of possession. You can hold the ball for long periods of time and then rely on your defense to close out. And as long as your defense is above average, that can be enough to win you games in the NFL or at least go 500. And if your defense is elite, that can take you a very long way. Look, it's no mistake that you look at the teams who are able to have this level of success with a backup quarterback and have Super Bowl aspirations with the backup quarterback. You go back to 2017 with the Philadelphia Eagles. Is a little bit of a different situation because they were able to secure the 1 seed before their quarterback got hurt, and then Nick Foles played for the rest of the year, but still kind of in the realm of what we're talking about. And then there's the 2015 Broncos, who lost Peyton Manning for a period of time. Peyton Manning came back, but what were they running? They were running that Shanahan West Coast style offense. They were playing ball control. They were trying to get first downs. They were trying to get time of possession. They were getting little chunks here and there, 5-6 yard chunks. They weren't really trying to push the ball as much downfield. They were trying to use their receivers to get like quick yardage and just keep the ball to let the defense dominate, and the defense did so. Even the Broncos turned the ball over a ton. They were able to get away with it because the defense was so good. You look at 2017, a dominant Eagles defense, and then an offense that could run and just move the ball in short bursts for the Philadelphia Eagles. And that's what the Browns need to do. The good news is that you have the coaching staff in place to be able to do that. And this coaching staff truly believes, right? You don't keep DTR as the backup when you did not have to, if you did not believe that he was capable of doing this in case of emergency. And if you have the staff that can maintain that game plan, and you have a player that you believe in to do that game plan, you might have a chance. Now, what I want to see out of DTR is him get comfortable. I don't expect him to throw for over 200 yards today. I would not care if he throws for a touchdown as long as he keeps turnovers to a minimum. And I just think that this is a game for DTR that is more important about him getting out of it and not being a disaster than it is about him looking great. I think the team can win the game if he just gets out of this game without being a disaster, right? I think that is the goal for the game on Sunday, is just get DTR in and out without it being a disaster, without it being the Baltimore game. And if he can do that, then I feel like you can get through this game. Maybe you can get past the Broncos as well. And then once you get past that, then we start to try to build. Remember, Jacoby Brissett did not look great his first 2 games in Cleveland. Well, I thought his first game, he didn't look great. The second game, he looked fine against the Jets. We know why they lost that game. But it took a couple games for him to get going, is my point, right? It didn't just happen week 1, day 1 of the NFL season. He had to get comfortable in this offense. He had to play games under it. Now, how much does his 1 start count for? Is that going to be what got the rust off and then we're going to start kind of rolling now? I don't think so, because the offense is changing from what DTR did. And that game was so bad, and he was so unprepared for that game, both from a coaching staff standpoint and from his own personal standpoint, that it doesn't really count in my eyes, both positively or negatively with experience. I think that this game's going to be okay, just get through it, survive it. And then next week we could talk about getting a little bit better. And then after that, we could talk about putting polish on this offense. But that's where I'm at with DTR. I'm not going to sit here and demand that he does a certain amount of production or try to predict his production, because there's just not a sample size big enough for me to make any judgments on what that's going to be. But what I do know is that he's a quarterback who can be pretty accurate and throw the ball pretty hard under 30 yards. He's not going to be a deep ball thrower. He's athletic enough to where, hey, if there's no check down, he could scramble and get some yards. And not just athletic enough, he could be a plus athlete at times, and really hurt teams that way. And just if you're looking for the template for him, he's not as ballsy of a thrower as Brock Purdy. And I don't think he has the deep ball ability that Brock Purdy has, but he has that athleticism, and maybe that can make up for it, right? He's a plus athlete. He might be able to make some plays. He might be able to make some plays with his feet coming out of those rolls, coming out of those play actions if the defense goes one way, and that might be enough to give him a net there. So that's what DTR is, right? If you're looking at the most relevant comparison, it would be Brock Purdy. I think Brock's a little bit more ballsy of a thrower. I think Brock's a little bit of a better deep ball thrower than DTR, but I think DTR can do the timing stuff, can do the underneath stuff. I think he can make the layups in the offense as long as he stays comfortable and trust his process. And I think he's athletic enough that, hey, he might not hit that deep corner on the run like Deshaun could. But you know what he could do is just tuck it, run it, get 7 yards, get 7 yards, get a first down. And that's all we want, right? It's not about maximizing the potential of the offense. It's about just getting those first downs, staying on the field, gobbling up time of possession, and getting points out of possessions, 3 or 7. That's going to be key for this Browns team, and that's how they're going to win football games going forward with DTR. And that's my hope and expectation of DTR. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I trust the process of the Cleveland Browns right now. I trust what they're thinking at quarterback. I know that a lot of people tend to go, oh, well, they traded Josh Dobbs. Why would they do that? This Browns team doesn't know what they're talking about. But you can't acknowledge that this team has one of the best rosters in the NFL. You can't acknowledge that the GM and the head coach have done a great job with development and the roster to the point to where they are one of the best rosters in the NFL, capable of being 6-3 and beating some of the best teams in the NFL with a backup quarterback, and with the quarterback 2 games back from returning from a 5-week injury. You can't tell me that this team is capable of that, but then not trust their evaluation of their backup quarterback when they made a trade for Josh Dobbs. I trust their evaluation of the quarterback position. I hope that they're right, but they have reason to believe that they think he can do this because of things that they saw. And I don't think it was just the preseason. I think they saw stuff in practice. They saw stuff in a meeting room, and they felt confident about it. And now that DTR is going to be put in a situation to do the things that we know he can do and play in the structure that we know is going to fit him the best, I think he's going to not shine. I don't think he's going to be like rookie of the year or anything or surpass CJ Stroud, but I do think that there is a decent chance that he's going to be decent. And that's all they really need at quarterback right now in order to kind of keep their goals moving, at least for the regular season. We'll see what happens in the postseason. We'll see where this defense is by the postseason. But that's what it's going to take, and that's what I expect, and that's how I expect things to look. And that's my kind of evaluation of DTR as a prospect. And right now, I think it's important that we evaluate him and talk about him as a prospect for these first 2 games, more so than a product, because I don't think we're going to get close to a picture of the finished product until 2 weeks from now, and then we'll have an idea of what he can and cannot do at an NFL level. But that's my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. We'll see what happens on Sunday. I hope things go well for the young fella. If they don't, then, it's going to look pretty bleak, because then you're looking at like Joe Flacco or PJ Walker for the rest of the year, and there's not as much hope in those situations. But let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Pete.